Architrave Gaming, I'm the Archmaster. So, today we are continuing our foray into the land of Arches and Avatars, my own tabletop adventure game. Last time we read from page 3, which was role-playing and immersion. Now, we are getting to page 4, system basics. I'm actually going to tell you all the system basics of the game itself. Your dice, how they work, taking actions, reliable rolls, the dice chain, surplus, the 4 different actions, which are just simpler and you can actually use them every time, unlike 5e. And who knows, we might have time to get to attributes and attribute threshold bonuses and aspects and all sorts of cool stuff. I'm gonna give you a rundown of how my game works, and I'm so excited to share it. So thank you very much for being here. All right, so the dice. Of course, you have your D4, D6, D8, blah blah blah, the same old dice. But what you have on top of that is the dice chain. Okay, the dice chain is essentially, it's an idea I took from, what's that called? I keep wanting to say DC-20. It's not. What's the Dungeon Crawl Classics? Thank you very much. It's where you have, you line up all your dice in order, right? And so that's your dice chain. They're all chained together. I don't have a dice chain as long as they do. They have like 20 dice or something. But I just take the first 5 dice, your D4, D6, D8, D10, and D12, and I say those are your dice chain. Okay. Here's where this comes in. Surplus. Whenever you get 5 over the required roll for in this case, I'll just use combat. You get a surplus, right? And surplus can be used for a lot of things. It's the same idea that Pathfinder has, where if you roll 10 over their AC, then you get a crit. I looked at that, I was like, that's a really cool idea, but instead of 10 over, which is a lot, let's just go 5 over, because 5s at a time, I think it works better. You actually get to use the thing more when it activates at every 5, rather than activating it every 10. You just don't get to use it as much, and I think if you have a good idea, then you should use it more, right? So with every 5 over the roll, you get a surplus. The basic thing that you can use with your surplus is just extra damage, right? And so you get an extra damage die one step down the dice chain. So say you have a D8 weapon, you have a longsword in one hand, okay? And you go to attack someone, his AC is 10, and you get 12, right? You hit him, you roll your D8, add your strength mod, you hit him, right? But if you roll 5 over, if you roll a 15 and his AC is 10, then you roll your D8 and a D6, and then add your strength mod, of course. And that's your extra damage. So it doesn't completely, add another equal die, because then that's a lot of damage, very quickly, but it's the next die down, and it keeps going. And if you get, 3 surplus over, you have your D8, D6, D4, and another D4, and it doesn't go any lower than that. You just keep adding D4s for however many surplus you have. And so that actually rewards you for going over their AC, and it lets you roll more click-clacks, which everybody likes doing, it also makes combat go quicker. A problem with 5e, you have all your monsters and your D8 damage die and whatnot, and then the monsters, the players, everyone just has so much health. It's so hard to have quick combats or tense combats with a lot of oh no, we might die, because you have 60 HP. The monster has 60 HP. So the first 2/3 of the combat is really just waiting until everyone gets down to a reasonable amount of health, and then the last third, it's okay, now everyone has a reasonable amount of health, let's see if we can survive, right? But the whole time up to that, it was kind of boring, because you knew no one was going to die, right? So in my system, I fixed that and say, your average damage is somewhere between doubled and tripled for everyone. Like the monsters have surplus, players have surplus, everyone has surplus. So everyone's just dying more quickly, and killing more quickly, and doing more damage more quickly. So combats are just over faster, and they're more tense and thrilling from the very start. You don't have to wait until, 3 rounds later, oh, now you're low health, and now you can be scared. It's no, you're scared right away, because one good hit might take away half your health. A crit might actually kill you at any level, right? Especially if you're fighting, large monsters, huge monsters, stuff that do a lot of damage. They could actually kill you right off the bat really quick. So it's actually tense. Combat is thrilling, it's interesting. You want to retreat, you want to use your high level spells, you want to throw your grenade or use your spell scroll or something. You actually want to use your resources, because combat kind of requires it. If you're entering combat, which you do all the time, then it's okay, you know what? Let's use our resources right off the bat. And guess what? That's another thing that makes the game more fun, is because you're not waiting to use your resources, waiting until you need it. It's like you need it every fight. And so, I think it's fun for players to actually use their potions and use their scrolls and their wand to fireballs. I think players actually enjoy doing that. Problem with 5e is they discourage you, they disincentivize you from actually using your resources because, oh well, don't use it too early, you might need it later. And so I think the players playing 5e, half of their combats are boring because they don't get to use their cool stuff because they technically don't need it. I want to make combat so dangerous that you actually need all your cool stuff to survive every time, so you actually get to use your cool stuff to survive. It's not that characters die more in A&A. They don't. It's that they actually get to use more cool abilities to stay alive instead of relying on a boring, massive health pool to stay alive. Either way, you're staying alive. But I prefer, and my players prefer, using the potion and the spell and, activating their adherence thing, or calling invoking their oath in order to, smash an enemy, rather than just, oh, I won because I just had 3 times the health that he did. Like one of those is interesting and one of those is boring. So my game is about making it actually interesting. Anyway, so yeah, surplus is super cool, but you can do other things with surplus as well. You don't just have to do damage. Weapon maneuvers. Each weapon has a weapon maneuver. It's in 5e, I think with the Battle Master they called it battle maneuvers. In my system, they are weapon maneuvers because they're tied to the weapon itself and not just a subclass, right? So anyone who has a certain level of proficiency with a weapon can use the weapon maneuver. There are 2 ways to use it. I'm not going to get into the second way right now. One way to use it is with surplus. So if you get a surplus on, you attack someone with your longsword and you get 1 surplus. Actually, I'll use the scimitar or saber as an example here. You attack someone with your scimitar and you hit him. You do your d6 damage, right? But if you hit him with a surplus, you can have an extra d4 on top, or you can activate your weapon maneuver and disarm it, because the weapon maneuver tied to the scimitar is disarming. There's a weapon maneuver tied to each weapon in the game, and so actually weapon choice actually matters more. It's not just the die. It's like, oh, this one has lower damage, but it has disarm, which is actually really good. The longsword may have more damage, and I can two-hand it, but its weapon maneuver isn't quite as good, right? So I've actually balanced things out. That that heavy crossbow has more range, but what does that actually do? There are lots of ways to balance weapons besides just damage and light property and all that. So anyway, it's actually really fun to be a martial in my system for this and many other reasons. But you actually the individual weapons you choose to have actually matter. Like they matter a lot because it's not just damage. But anyway, yeah. What else was I going on? We had don't click away. I'm finding it. We had surplus and taking actions. Actually, never mind. You can click away. That's the end of the video. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Feed the algorithm. Thank you to my patron, Jack McCarthy, for joining Patreon, my very first patron. Thank you, Jack. And yeah, I'll see you all next time. God bless.